So it's that time of year when it gets a little bit chilly. So rather than starting on the floor, I try to get a few more of my classes to be standing. So it's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to take mountain pose. Your choice, whether you have your feet hip distance apart and parallel or your feet together. It's whatever feels good for you. The first, try and sort of roll the shoulders out and just shake it out a little bit. Wriggle it around just gently. Make sure the body feels relaxed. And then we'll slowly turn the palms forwards and close the eyes. So at that point, you may have started with your feet together and changed your mind as you need a little bit more balance. So the first thing we want to do with our eyes closed is to tilt the pelvis down a little bit. So we send the tailbone towards the floor. That helps draw the abdominal muscles in just for us kind of naturally. And then once we've done that, we're going to think about the weight in our feet and just see if we can get the feeling of pressure to be even between the front and the back of the foot and also the inside and outside edges. So sometimes referred to as the four corners. We're actually going to press the feet down into the floor and you'll get a little bit of a lift in the thighs as you do that, and maybe in the buttocks as well. And we're careful to avoid pressing the knees back. It's a push down. Back is kind of what we naturally do when someone says straighten your legs, but this is slightly different. There's a fraction of a bend in there for most of us. Most of us hyperextend just a little bit in the back of the knees. So having found our feet, literally, we'll take that into a neck stretch. So I'm going to take the right hand up and just bend the elbow and bring the hand over the ear and then just allow myself to use the weight of my arm and drop my shoulder a little bit to get that bit of a stretch down the side of the neck muscles. And also leading into the shoulder as the shoulder and the neck join. Release from there. And take up the other hand. Just gently let the head hang over. And start to take a little bit more weight. Remember to drop both shoulders, relax, and they tend to lift up when we take that arm up to the sky. Still trying to press the feet down lightly into the floor, keep that pressure even. And maybe noticing the texture of the stretch from side to side. Does it feel similar or maybe a little tighter on one side? Get my release from there. Let the head come back up. And then we'll just float the arms out. We're going to take something called a surface stretch. So I'm going to bring the left arm across and I'll lock the right arm underneath it. So I'm going to try and bring my left shoulder down rather than around my ear. And we're trying to bring that arm directly across the chest. So as I breathe into the back of my shoulder blade. Feel a little bit of separation, stretching those muscles underneath the shoulder blade. And then we'll release. Let the arms out. We'll cross over simply to the opposite side. Again, just try and let the shoulder down. And then release. So we'll just take the arms out and up towards the sky above the shoulders, palms facing in, and then let the arms come back down as we exhale. So we're only bringing the hands above the shoulders to start with. I'm trying to draw the ribs down towards the hips a little bit. So rather than letting the chest flare up, we're making a conscious effort to bring the hands directly above, following the line of the body. And getting a little bit of an abdominal squeeze in. Remember the tailbone's still going down, feet are still pressing into the floor evenly. This time as the hands come down, we'll let the hands come behind and just interlace the fingers. And see if you can bring the palms together. Not a problem if you can't, but if you can, great. And then lifting the hands away from your bottom towards the back of the mat behind you. So this reverse bind. Some of us are going to have our hands very high, some of us not so. So we're going to try and keep the belly drawn in, weight even through the feet. Last breath. And then we'll release the hands out. Just shake everything out a little bit. I always find that quite strong on the elbows. So if you found the same, you're in good company. Bring hands in towards the heart. We'll take a slow forward bend. So we're going to hinge forwards, drawing the belly in, keeping the spine long flat, shifting the weight a little into the toes and bending the knees as much as we need to get the fingertips onto the floor. We'll come into a half forward bend by bringing the hands onto the shin and lengthening the body out. Exhaling, sliding the hands down and rolling the body in. Coming back up. Easing our way down. Coming up. Exhale in. A couple more. We'll bring the hands onto the hips, lengthen the chest forward, soften the knees to lift up. Take the arms out wide, shoulder height, and I'm going to bring the left arm across the right arm over the top and bring ourselves into eagle arms. Just roll the shoulders back a little bit, let the elbows come in towards the chest. Don't need to be high. And then we'll just reverse that out. So take the arms out wide, cross over the opposite way. And then release from there. Just shake that out a little bit. I'm going to see if I can take my hands behind. I'm going to just turn towards you so you can see what I'm doing. I'm holding on to the elbows. So you could bring the palms together, but the alternative for that, if you find that a struggle, would be this version. And then we'll slowly let ourselves come into that forward fold again. So you want to make sure the shoulders feel comfortable as you come in. If we overwork them, we're just adding tension into the body, and we want to let the head hang. Press the feet into the floor a little bit, lift the hips up. And then I'm going to let the hands relax back down to the floor. I'll step into kind of the middle of my mat. And just slide that block behind the back of my heels. And then with the fingers on the floor, then take the heels onto the corner edges, turn the toes out a little bit, and let myself slip down into Malasana. I'm going to take the full version. I'm going to bring the hands together and towards the breastbone, roll the shoulders back, pull my elbows into my thighs, close to my knees, and try to squeeze the knees in a little bit. Press the tailbone down to the floor. If you don't need the block to come into a squat, you could omit that. That's not a problem. But for many of us, we're a little bit restricted, a little bit tight in the ankles. So the block is our friend. Just keeping the belly drawn in and lifting. Really good practice for our crow pose. And then we'll release. So I'm just going to bring the hands to the floor. Let the head come down, bottom goes up, and then spin the feet off the block. I can move the block out to the side, and away a little bit. And then I'm going to zigzag my toes just off of the edges of the mat. You can keep the heels on the corners if you wish. And allow myself to squat down. So just bringing my bottom more or less in line with my knees, and then bringing my hands onto my thighs, lifting myself up gently. And then we're going to have a little rock out from side to side. See how that feels. Those groins to open out a little bit more. So just rocking through the feet a little bit. So this stage, I'm still taking the weight of my body through my arms, directly down onto my shins. And then I'm going to see if I can bring myself a little more upright, tuck the tailbone under. So the belly comes in, pubic bone forwards, hands coming towards the heart. I'm going to straighten the legs and let the arms go out wide. And this time I'll see if I can bring the hands above the head, palms together, and then hands into heart. So just a little goddess flow, can sink down. So conscious to keep the knees out wide and that tailbone tucking under. That will limit perhaps how deep you come. Either way, you don't want to come down any lower than your actual knees. So for many of us, that would be like wishful thinking. But if you are a little bit more open in the hips than I, perhaps that's not a problem. Come down for the last time. Allow ourselves to lift up. And we're going to allow ourselves to just turn the toes in, all down to the floor. Find the strap, pick hold of that, bring my feet back onto the mat. And I'll let myself slowly lift up. So we're going to take a single leg lift. We'll just bring the feet together. I'm going to take the strap underneath the right foot across the ball joint, so big toe and little toe. And I'm going to allow myself to just find something to focus on ahead. Press down through the left foot. It's a strong connection of that left leg pressing into the ground. And then allow the leg to lift forward. So if you're not using a strap, you bend your knee and bring the foot in and take hold of your big toe. So I'm just allowing myself, oops, a bit wobbly today, a little bit more wobbly than I thought. Perhaps I'll just take that off of the mat, be more stable. Now, when you come into the pose, if you're using the strap, you try and draw the shoulders back, flex the foot a little bit and press out through the heel. And then we'll slowly take the strap into the right hand, the left hand out to the side. And we're going to open it out slowly. So the more slowly you take it, the easier it is to catch your balance. Trying to keep the hips and the shoulders pointing the same direction as the standing foot. And then we'll bring the legs slowly back in. Ease the foot down to the floor. We'll do the same to the second side. So again, bring the feet together. It's easier to have the strap on the floor and then just hook the strap under a little bit diagonally across the ball of joints. Like so, to compose and spread the toes out a little bit on that right side, press the foot down. And then when you're ready, slowly lift the leg up. So with the strap, you can keep a straight leg. Try not to lean back too much. Draw the shoulders back a little, toes pointing towards the sky. Belly's drawn in, actually still sending the tailbone down. Just being quite precise about the alignment of that pelvis, neutral position to the floor. And then we'll take the strap into the left hand, right arm to our side. And we'll let ourselves take that out. And some days we got better balance than others. There we go. And then slowly bring it back. I could see that I was going to eventually put my foot on the side of the window, and it distracted me enough to drop out of that. So bringing the foot gently back down. And then we finish with the strap. But we're going to come into tree pose. So it's a slightly different variation. In the Ashtanga practice, they use a foot lock by bringing the leg into the thigh. So if you've practiced, you'll know what that is, but if you've not done it before, here's our first go. We're going to press down through the left leg. We'll slowly draw the right knee up to about the height of the hip, and then take the knee out to the side. We'll bring the heel in towards the groin, and then take hold of the sort of that foot and place the heel towards the top of my left thigh, so just above the groin. And then we'll purposefully let the knee move down towards the floor, and I start to press my foot into my thigh. So if you've got the right trousers on, you can get a bit of traction. You can then bring the hands in towards your heart. So you're trying to draw the knee back. You're pressing the heel into the thigh. And then we'll release. You can just take hold of the foot, lift the knee to release it out, and then give it a little stretch out. So just working into those ankles. We'll be doing this again later on. So this is our first kind of time to try it if you've not done that style before. So again, focus, press down through the right foot, left knee lifts, goes out to the side. Allow yourself to use your hands to find your ankle, shin, and your foot. Bring the heel in. And then whilst you're holding the foot, you're going to start to draw that knee down. And when you feel confident with your balance, you can then press and take the release. And then just slowly come out of that. Take the foot, lift the knee, and let it come back down again. Give it a little bit of a shake out. So slightly unusual version if you've not have the privilege of doing a Ashtanga class before. That's not the whole series, I can assure you, it's just part of it. So coming back into the front of the mat, bring hands in towards the heart. Take a little breath, going to hinge at the hips. And let ourselves come down, long, slow flow down to the floor. Stepping back into a down dog. Just allow myself to walk the dog out briefly. So already worked a little bit into the ankles and the calves and the shins from our standing poses. This just gives us a little bit more. And then from this position in down dog, I'm going to let the feet move as wide as the mat. Hands in towards my body so that my heels just start to press down into the floor. So I want to actively press down, feel my thighs lift, still in that down dog shape. I'm going to take a twist, but the left hand comes under and across to the outside of that right ankle or calf, or whatever you're able to get hold of. You're actually trying to turn the body underneath. Now, as you do that, there's a tendency to sway the hips over towards the right in this version. So you can try and bring the hips back over to the center line, draw the twist into the body, lift the hips, press the legs down into the floor through the feet. Remember to breathe. Okay, release the hand. Back into your starting position. Just make sure you're happy with where your legs are. And then start to take the stretch into the opposite side. Again, just conscious as you move across, but if your hips swayed out, bring yourself a little bit more back onto the center line. Try and broaden the shoulders out. Last breath in. Release. We'll come back into regular down dog. So taking the hands forwards and bringing the feet back in. Take a little breath from there. Going to walk the hands then towards my toes into a forward bend. So the body should be warming up a little bit more now. And then we'll bring the hands onto the hips and let ourselves lift up. Now, hands into the heart. I'm going to bring the toes and heels together again, and then get a little bit of space between the ankle bones. So just toes in, heels out very slightly. As I bend the knees over the toes, sitting back into chair to begin with. And then I'm going to allow myself to sit a little lower as well. So keeping the body nice and long, you want to try to avoid dropping the shoulders. So draw them back a little bit, get that sense of lifting out of the pelvis. And then we're going to take it into a balance. So I'm going to shift the weight into the left. Slide the right foot forwards so the toes are off the ground and pointing out. Try and squeeze the thighs together a little bit. And again, try to keep the hips a little bit more centered rather than leaning out fully. And bring that foot back. Take a moment, shift the weight into the opposite leg. Remember to keep the spine nice and long, shift the weight, take the other leg forwards. And then we'll bring that foot back in. Let ourselves stand. We'll take the hands high above the shoulders, and then exhale forwards, keeping the hands stretching out, palms facing in. Soften the knees again, coming into a deeper forward fold with the feet together. It's a little stronger in the fibers of the hamstring. And then we'll walk forwards with the fingers to down dog. Once we come into that, we lift up onto the tippy toes, and then just take a few inches at a time, stepping through straight legs into the front of the mat, into a forward bend, which is possibly a little higher on the tippy toes than we would normally go. Walking it in as far as we can to come to the front of the mat, and then having the feet hip distance apart, we lift. We'll take the hands high again, in towards the heart. Exhale down. Hands come to the floor. Then we'll lift onto the fingertips. Draw the chest forwards. Broaden the shoulders out a little bit. To half forward fold. Soften into the deepness of the fold. Allow yourself to take the right foot back into a lunge. Drop the heel onto the center line for warrior two. Again, bring the hips over the center. Lift the hands alongside your body as your chest comes away from the floor fractionally. Take the right hand forwards to cartwheel up. Just check your front knee position. So the chest is turning to the side, the hips are a little diagonal. And then we'll bring the hands in towards the heart, a little easier on the shoulders. Rotate the body, and then allow ourselves to lengthen down to the floor. Spin in the back heel, we move into a down dog and lift high with the hips. Come forwards into a plank. Push forwards on the tiptoes for the half plank, elbows into the ribs, shoulders back, chest opens up for up dog. Then we roll over the toes, hopefully back into our down dog. We'll draw the right leg up into a scissor. Knee comes in towards the chest. Foot comes through into lunge. We're just placing the knee over the ankle. Press out through that back heel, straight leg. Push off the toes and come into our forward bend. Hands onto the hips and we lift up. We'll take that through to the second side. Hands come high into the heart. Exhale down to the floor. Half forward fold. Fold it in. Left leg back and drop the heel in. Hands alongside. Left arm comes up. We lift. Just a little time to stabilize through the hips so that tailbone tucks down and under and forwards a little bit. The knee draws out to the outside edge a little bit on the front, so it goes more towards little toe. And then the hands come in towards the heart. We'll rotate the body slowly. And the hands come to the floor. Step it back into our down dog. Inhale to a high plank. Push forwards as you exhale into half plank. Inhale strong, legs pressing back. Lift the hips from up dog to down dog. And we'll take the left leg into a scissor. Roll the knee in towards the body. Bring the foot through into the big lunge. Roll the shoulders back. Press out through that back heel. Just enough time really for that leg to activate and know it's done some work. And then press off the toes. And bring ourselves into the forward bend. Hands come onto the hips and we lift up. Inhale high. Hands into the heart. Exhale down to the floor. And step back into our down dog. Come forwards into a plank and bring the knees to the ground directly underneath the hips. Make sure the hands are then underneath your shoulders. If you have to adjust, you adjust. Tuck the toes of the right foot underneath. Lengthen the leg out to the back of the mat. And then we're going to lift the foot to the height of the hip, pressing down through the shin, keeping the shoulders stable and the belly drawn in. Now lift the right hip up a little further so the toes start to turn out to the side. And then we're going to swing the leg out 90 degrees to the body. Try to hold it the same height as we draw it through. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths, and then bring the foot down, sole of the foot to the floor. Press that down, bring the hands in. Stabilize the hip. So the right hip goes down, the left hip comes up a little bit. Hand into the hip just to help us. We bring the left hand up, palm faces out to the side. We take it into a side bend over to the right. So we're lifting the spine up out of the pelvis, stretching the hand out. Strong through the fingers. Come back again. Bring the hands to the floor. Now, press down through the hands and the shins. Draw the belly in. See if you can lift the foot again to the height of the hip and swing the leg around. That's quite a big stretch and workload on that leg. Foot comes down, knee comes in, and then we just take it to the opposite side. So we slide in the left leg back, getting nice and strong, allowing ourselves to lift the hip. Swinging the leg out, 90 degrees-ish. Hold it for 1, for 2, for 3, and then bring the foot down, sole of the foot to the floor, press it into the ground. Fingers come back. You take the lift, stabilize the hips first. Bring the hand up on the right, extend out and over. Again, this is one of those poses where you might notice a substantial difference to how far you lean out on each side. So that's just an observation. See what's more natural in your body. While we're pressing the foot down that's extended, I'm trying to draw the hip back into the hip socket as well. So it's not an open joint. I'm trying to compress it back in a little bit. And then we'll let the hands come back down to the floor. Take a breath, press down through the hands and the shin, or lift the foot from the floor. And ease the leg back. Square the hips and bring the knees down to the ground. They start to sit onto the heels and just shake out the wrists a couple of times, and then we'll come back up onto all fours. I'm going to take a little breath from there. I'm going to take both feet back into a plank and take it into a side plank. So I'm going to the left first of all, and taking the right hand up. I want to pay particular attention to pressing this bottom arm, shoulder and hand into the floor and lifting the hips. And focus on how the fingers feel in the floor, how that my body weight moving around a little bit, if it shakes and trembles, how that affects the hand. And then I bring the hand back down, back into the high plank and cross over to the opposite side. Again, just feeling the fingers, pulling the tips of the fingers into the mat a little bit, pressing down, trying to get the shoulder above the wrist, hips high, a little pressing into the legs. Last breath in, hands come back down to the floor. And again, we bring the knees down to the ground, sit down again, and let ourselves shake it out. So we're going to come into what we call a connected side plank, which is where we're going to use the hand to take hold of the foot behind us. I'll explain as we go along. So we come into the regular all fours position. Now I'm going to do this so I face you to start with. So I'm going to spin my left foot off to the side a little bit. I'm just pivoting on my left knee. And then I take the right foot back, bring the left hand a little more in line with the knee, and the heel wants to be in line with the knee. So there's a nice line between hand, knee, and heel. And then I'm going to open the body to the side a little bit. Then I'm going to adjust to make sure that I'm happy with where this bottom shoulder is. Take the hand high, and then lift the long leg away from the ground to about the height of the hip. I'm slowly going to bend the knee and take the foot behind, and then see if I can find my toes, my ankles. And then once I've got a good connection there, I'm actually going to press the shin away a little bit and let the chest open up. So I'm arching through the spine very gently. It's a progressive opening. Pressing out just enough to keep the arms straight. Last breath, gentle release. We'll see if we can take the leg back out. As you release, your body comes back more into a line. That arc in the spine reduces, and we bring the foot down. We bring the hand back down to the floor. And then we'll see if we can do it to the opposite side. So we take a little breath, we pivot, right foot out, adjust the hand in, take the left leg back, bring the heel in, again looking for the line underneath my body, making sure I'm happy. Take the lift, adjust as you need to. And when you're ready, let's see if we can lift the foot. So if you've managed that successfully, you can move to sort of the next part. Otherwise, you're kind of working on this, stabilizing this bit. You're going to bend the knee slowly and carefully take the hand back to find. Now you can look, but generally if you look, you kind of lose your balance a little bit more because you turn the body into a little bit of a looser spine. You want to keep it nice and long at that stage. Then as you press the foot away, the hips push a little bit out to the long side, so does the chest. You get a little bit more of an arc in the spine. So it is progressive, otherwise it will affect your balance a lot. You'll feel the ribs flare out a little more. And then it's a gentle release. Find your balance. Lots of little changes there. The foot comes down, and then we're back down into all fours. Just a round or two of cat-cow. Feels like a natural thing to do after that. And then coming into neutral, I'm going to tuck the toes underneath, bring myself into a down dog, walk the hands into the toes for that forward bend. Hands onto the hips, let myself lift up. Soften the knees as you travel. Shake it all out, walk up to the front of the mat. Feet are about hip distance apart. Hands into the heart, take a breath. Exhale long and slow. Down to the floor. Onto the fingertips for lifting. Folding in. Stepping back with the right leg into lunge. Lift the chest, roll the shoulders back. Drop the heel in. Hands alongside. That dynamic lift into warrior two. Float the hands high this time. Rotate. Lengthen out through the body. Stretch the fingers forwards and then down to the floor. Step it back into our down dog. Come forwards into our plank. Push forwards into the half. Lift for up dog. And gently back into down dog. Couple of breaths. Lift high. We'll take the right leg high, scissor. Knee towards chest. Exhale for the lunge. Strong back leg. Into a forward fold. Hands onto the hips to lift. Take it high, second side. Oops, forgot the lift. And so, fold it in. Then take your foot back on the left. So lunge, dynamic lift. Inhale high, rotate, lengthen out. Keep the belly drawn in. Bring the hands to the floor, stepping back into your dog. Half plank. Coming forwards. Through up dog. Resting in down dog. Left leg lifts, the scissor. Knee comes into the chest and through. And then stepping forwards. Hands onto the hips and got another lift. Shake it all out. I'm going to step off my mat. Now we did say we're going to take that Ashtanga type tree again. So the body's warmed up a little more, hands in towards the heart. Find our focus point. We're going to lift the left knee first, so press down through the right. Take the knee to the side. Use the hands that find the foot and draw that in. Now, Shtangis that have been practicing for decades tend to just bring the foot in without using the hands. Not a problem. Still pressing the foot against the thigh, the knee towards the back of the mat, squaring the hips. And then release. And we'll build into the second side. So pressing down first, right leg lifts, knee travels out. Use the hands, bring the foot in high. So it's off towards the side. If you can imagine the center, your heel is going to be a couple of inches off to the side of that. And American release. Bring that foot down as well. Shake your back out. We'll come back onto the mat. Ease our way into a forward fold. So the hips and the feet distance apart. Into that forward bend. Last little nice stretch. Take the block and just place that behind me. Fingers forwards, soften the knees. Let myself come back down onto the block. I'm taking Dandasana. And again, you may or may not need the strap to be close by. Just going to draw the flesh out a little bit. Sitting up nice and tall. Flexing the toes gently towards me. And spreading the toes out. So looking to have the little toe and the big toe joint the same distance from me, which means the thighs rotate in fractionally for most of us. And then trying to press the sitting bones down so I get a feeling of reaction, the spine climbing. And then I'm going to take Janu Shirshasana. So I'm going to bring the right heel into the groin. The foot stays flexed against the side of the inner groin. The knee comes down, presses lightly into the floor, and I square the hips. Roll the thigh in. Take a little bend into the knee. Foot is flexed. Get space in the spine. Let yourself to fold over. And then just take the hands underneath the back of the calf, palm facing in, and then press the hands gently against the palm. And that will just draw us gently onto that thigh. So still pressing the bent knee down into the floor a little. Drawing the hips and the tailbone towards the back of the mat. Last breath in. Release on the exhale. Come back up. Take it to the second side. So the legs shoot out side by side. Heel comes into the groin, a square. Little bend in the knee, space. Fold. And then bring the hands gently again underneath. And just the smallest little pressure to draw myself down. Most of the time in this pose, I always focus on, most of the time I focus on drawing forwards. This is one of the few exceptions where I can play around a little bit with the pose in different ways. Belly's drawn in nice and tight. Hands to the floor to let myself lift up. So the legs go out. Going to take the right foot underneath for a seated twist. So I want the knee pointing forwards. Left leg comes over, foot to the floor, knee high. Tilt the pelvis forwards a little bit to get that extension in the spine. Right hand up and over. Counterlever the front arm and leg, and look gently over the rear shoulder. release from there. Untangle the legs. Take them down the center line again, and then we start to deliver the opposite side. And we can release from there as well. So I'm going to give the legs a little bit of a shake out. I'm going to work on bringing the left leg under, but not out to the side. This time I'm going to bring the heel into the groin. So you can't see it, but that knee is kind of pointing out 45 degrees just to the side. Shin is on the ground. And this is where you may or may not want to use the strap. So bring the heel in. We're going to come into heron pose. So you would either take your hands around the sole of the feet and interlace, or you would take the strap underneath the ball joint of the foot and have the fingers really close to your toes. Now, as you lift up, you just want to bring the heel off of the ground a little bit and try to have the knee pointing up towards the sky and the toes pointing forwards at this point, rather than sort of the leg hanging out to the side of the hip. You want it pretty much aligned forwards. Roll the shoulders back, bring the foot up in towards the height of the chest, and then draw the knee towards you. So really bringing it in towards the chest, using the shoulders to hold you back a little bit and keep you upright. Again, you want the foot to be aligned rather than twisting out. If that feels good, you can take a breath and slowly extend out the heel. And that's where that little bit of strap might come in handy. So, yeah, my hands are touching my foot, but I haven't quite got enough to get my fingers around the sole of my foot and hold on and interlace the fingers nicely. So this just gives me a little bit of more assurance. I'm pressing out through the heel. Just got a little bit of a nerve in my foot there, the strap, so that was needing to move. Last breath in. And then we can let that foot come back down. So we try to limit the amount of roll back that takes place. Legs go back out in front. Bring the other heel in to the groin, knee out to the side. That's our sort of foundation stability. So we've got this nice long line and two sitting bones to work with. Bring the heel in. Again, we want to square ourselves up to the front of the mat. Get a nice lock with the foot. Bring the heel off the ground to start with. Lift the knee. Again, thinking about the alignment. I find this side a lot harder to align. I can still get into the shape of the pose, but the alignment's not the same. There are differences in the hips. So I try to work with what I've got. When that feels okay in the back of the leg, the belly's drawn in, the shoulders are drawn back. We try to limit the amount of roll back. Keep pressing down through the bottom knee. And the foot is generally about the height of the face. I'm trying to flex the foot, press out through the heel. So, there's a fair degree of work of lifting the leg up, just using the hands really to assist, rather than using the hands totally. That way the top of the thigh feels like it's drawing in a little bit more. Last breath in, and then we can release that foot to the ground. And we'll move the straps out to the side. So I'm going to move the block out of the way and allow myself to come to the ground. So knees are high, feet are in towards the bottom, and the hands go out wide. Lengthen out the back of the neck, roll the shoulders underneath, we've got the hips out, and then let the legs roll over to the right. Turn the head to the left. Just going to take a few breaths here. Letting myself relax. So heron pose is, you know, quite a strong dynamic pose. There's a lot of energy going in. This is the opposite. This is the letting go pose. So draw the legs high again, inhale, and realign if you need to. Roll it over to the opposite side. Now we're going to work on a version of flowing spinal twist. And it's more for the upper mid-back and the shoulders. So I'm going to bring the knees high again. Take a little breath. Let my legs roll over towards my right and bring my left hand over to sit on top of my right hand. So my head is on the ground. Now I'm just going to take the left hand fingertips on the floor, so palm faces in, and I'm going to slide the fingers along the ground in a semicircular action above my head, and then gradually, as the hands go over the head and I start to roll the shoulders down towards the floor, I turn the palm up, allow myself to take the hand out 180 degrees, and then bring the hand back onto the chest and slide through. So trying to release the legs down to the floor and keep them just held in position, but not actively doing anything. And trying to relax the spine out, going through. So we're just going to do 5 on each side. Slide down, roll back. Try to get shoulders as close to the ground as you can, even if the knees are lifting away, it's not a problem. The idea is to enjoy yourself. And keeping the head on the ground the whole time. So we're coming for my last one of these. And as the hand goes out wide, I'm going to lift the knees up. Allow myself to roll the legs over to the opposite side and then bring my right hand onto the chest and out towards the left hand, and then inhale immediately into the stretch, the opposite side. And if you're able, inhale as you draw the hand across the chest, and a slow exhale as the hand draws over. We'll take 2 more. Find one, taking the hand out to the side. Let the knees come back up. And we'll take the feet out to the corner edges of the mat. Let the hands come back down by the side of the body for Shavasana. Just wriggle around a little bit to free everything up. And then a few minutes of silence. We'll begin to just stretch the fingers and toes. Let ourselves breathe a little deeper. When we're more connected, we can start to move the wrists and the ankles. And finally, you can let yourself have a gentle stretch out. And from here, I'm going to slide the heels along the floor. And then let the knees come in towards the body, a leg at a time. A very gentle hug. So I'm actually going to take the hands around the back of the thighs. Just kind of wriggle out through the spine a little bit, let the knees hang out to the sides. That's my version of a hug. Spine is very flat to the floor when you do it this way. And then I'm going to release gently onto my right side. Take a rest down there. Using the exhale to use the hands to guide back up. Bring myself into a seated position that's easy to lengthen the spine from. Bringing the hands in towards your heart, taking a breath in, closing the eyes, and a slow exhale beginning, dropping the chin. Really draws towards the spine, that bow forms. So as our practice, inhaling, you can draw the spine back up with the breath, lifting the head and opening the eyes. Namaste. Thank you very much for joining me. Hope you enjoyed. See you on the mat soon.